Welcome to Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. I'm your host, Dr. Edmund Sulkowski. And on today's show, let's welcome Judge John DiSalle to the show. Welcome, John. It's a pleasure to have you on the show again. You were on the show a number of years ago, and I don't know why we didn't have you back sooner, but we're here to talk about something that's extremely important and something that you deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And as a judge in Washington County, and you've been a judge for how many years now?
I've been a judge for 12 years.
12 years. And you followed in the footsteps of your dad.
That's right.
Yeah, which is awesome. And you sit on a special division of the court system.
Yes.
Would you explain that to us?
Yes, I'm part of the criminal court division, but I handle all the specialty courts, including DUI treatment court, mental health treatment court, veterans court, and the restrictive treatment program, which is also known as the drug treatment court.
So when you say treatment court, that's a little bit different than there's somebody in front of you in the courts and they're being penalized for some violation. You're using the word treatment, meaning that you're sitting there trying to help these people in their problem.
Exactly. It is a different, it's a departure from the traditional role of the judge and the court. They are, the folks that come in front of me are coming on a sentence. They've been convicted or found guilty or in violation of their previous probation, but we've identified them as folks that are struggling with addiction or other issues, but the drug treatment court are those folks struggling with substance abuse and addiction. And we have found that if we can treat that addiction, treat that underlying issue which brings them into the criminal justice system, then they will no longer be involved with the criminal justice system. Will reduce the recidivism. They'll be less likely to reoffend, and it's a very valuable program.
So when someone comes in front of you with a DUI, explain to us the process of how you're trying to help them in their treatment.
And we have a lot of DUIs, unfortunately, in our county. But when they come, the treatment program is primarily for those with a second or subsequent offense, second or third offense. And as you get a DUI, you might get a break on the first one, but as you get a second or third offense, you're looking at up to a mandatory 1 year incarceration.
And this is in Washington County, it would be in Washington County jail system?
Or even in the state system. Because when you get up to 1 year or more, then you're looking at a state penitentiary. So we have found that rather than just incarcerating them and warehousing that individual, the system is much more effective if we work on that alcohol addiction or the other substances involved in that DUI.
So under the term DUI, that could be a drug addiction offense and so forth. It's not necessarily alcohol.
Right. It's driving under the influence of alcohol or controlled substances, or a combination of alcohol and drugs.
So even a prescription drug, somebody who's taken a prescription drug provided to them by their physician, those people can fall under that category as well?
Absolutely. And I tell them often that just having the prescription is not your defense. If you have a prescription for a controlled substance, particularly an opiate or an opioid or narcotic, you have a great responsibility to be careful with the use and with driving, and all those medications are labeled warning you of that as well.
So you sit on the board, as I do. It's the Washington County Drug and Alcohol Commission. You work with the commission then as a judge?
Yes.
Explain to us that process. Explain to us first of all, John, what the commission is and what they do.
The Washington Drug and Alcohol Commission is what we call our single county authority. Every county has a drug and alcohol entity or that serves that county. Our single county authority is called the Washington Drug and Alcohol Commission, and they have an office in Millcroft Center, and they do a whole host of drug and alcohol treatment and referrals. They also provide for my court, they provide the case management for the DUI treatment court and for the restrictive treatment program, the drug treatment court that I have. So they work, they are, each offender in my drug court or my DUI court is assigned a case manager from the Drug and Alcohol Commission, who is part of our treatment team involved in that program.
And that board has been in existence how long?
Since at least '05.
'05. And I'm new to the board. I think I've been on the board for now 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months. And it was a learning process for me. I had a little bit of understanding of opioid addiction in my training in medical school, and we were taught signs and symptoms to kind of identify people that were addicted and so forth. But I'll tell you, my views have expanded greatly since I've been on this board, my understanding, and the effect and the devastation on families and on the whole community in general. It's just absolutely amazing how an addiction interferes with everyday living. And the taxpayers actually are impacted, and they don't even realize it because their tax dollars are being used for police to arrest these people or to break up drug places and things like that. And these addictions really impact society greatly.
Absolutely. Not only the police and the drug task force and the court system, it's all, the addiction is all impacting the entire criminal justice system. Then also the healthcare system with first responders, EMT, and ambulance responding to overdoses. It's had quite an impact on our.
And then people that are addicted require money. Sometimes they're unable to work because of their addiction, and then increases the robberies and the break-ins and the assaults and things like that. And so the system gets bombarded by this from every angle and actually overloaded.
Right.
And what I found was really interesting is this group, this Drug and Alcohol Commission, they intently work to prevent all this.
Right.
And they're becoming the model for the whole state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, it's exciting that our Drug and Alcohol Commission has been a leader in the opioid battle across the state, even across the nation. And you and I are also involved with the Washington Opioid Coalition, where we're reaching out to the community and involving those first responders and healthcare and law enforcement, trying to get everyone involved with that.
Yeah, it's a group of people that are doers. They just don't sit and talk, which is, you get, some of these organizations get together and they talk and that's about it. But these people are out there working hard and doing things. It's amazing for me to as a newcomer to this, to observe all of this.
It is. We have a lot of good people, and they are getting it done. They don't just talk about what they're going to do or what should be done. They're actually doing it.
Yeah, we have this conception, I think, in the public. You're a judge. You sit there and say, "Okay, you're sentenced this," and you hit the hammer and next case. But you're not. That's not the way this works. You're involved, as is our district attorney, Gene Battone, and the head of the commission, Cheryl Andrews. They're working hard to keep people out of the system.
Exactly.
And they're doing this. Give us a number of ways how they're doing this. What's the procedure and how they're preventing people from repeat offenders and so forth?
Well, we in the folks that are in the criminal justice system, we're trying to identify those that are struggling with substance abuse, whether it's opioids, alcohol, what have you. So we have several ways that we're dealing with them. One is our drug treatment court program, where the offender, they take responsibility for their criminal act, but they agree to, they sign a performance contract where they agree to submit to the treatment, whatever it'll be. That's all managed by the Drug and Alcohol Commission case manager.
So when you say they take responsibility, what exactly does that mean?
That means they have admitted their guilt, and they've taken responsibility for their actions.
Okay, so typically that would mean they do some probation or some sentence in jail or some fine, something to that effect.
Right.
So are they then taken out of that system as far as going to jail or paying a fine, or they still have that responsibility of paying a fine?
They are taken out of jail. We get them out of jail and into a treatment facility. Initially, they'll start with inpatient, and then they'll go to a halfway house, an outpatient, and step down. But they are still responsible for whatever fines and costs they have incurred, and of course restitution for those robberies or burglaries that they may have done. They don't shirk that responsibility. Sometimes we're trying to get them out of the jail into the treatment. Sometimes, depending on the offense, we include a house arrest or electronic home monitoring with that as part of their sentence. But yes, part of being in recovery or attempting to achieve recovery is being accountable and taking responsibility for what you've done.
Owning what you've done. So then you send them to treatment, and that could require some medications and so forth.
Yes.
Like what? What type of medications would?
Some of our offenders are involved with medically assisted treatment, including methadone, Suboxone, and only a handful of those, but more often we've been using a lot of Vivitrol. Vivitrol is a form of is a drug that it's a form of naltrexone.
Naltrexone, yes.
And it's designed to reduce the craving, so they get an injection once a month, reduce their cravings for opioids or alcohol.
See, what's interesting is we have these receptor sites throughout our body and on just about every cell of our body. And once they become engaged, they then have a requirement. And you take a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of a drug, and then it requires a little more and a little more. And soon you're addicted, and your body's actually craving these. So that naltrexone works really well to slow down those receptor sites. And actually, there's something called low-dose naltrexone, which not too many people really utilize or know about, actually, and it's sort of like an off-label type of thing. But low-dose naltrexone actually keeps inflammation down and stimulates your immune system.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of interesting, but that's a whole nother topic. But that's in high dose, it actually gets you off of that opioid addiction.
I noticed that there was a commercial for a pharmaceutical commercial for a medication for weight loss to reduce overeating cravings that included naltrexone.
Naltrexone, yeah. It's kind of an interesting, because we have these receptor sites, and sometimes they need to be fed a little bit, but when they become excited, they have a craving. Give us that craving, and that's what creates our addiction. It's interesting. We're going to be doing a study on the board with hopefully with the use of hemp oil with THC removed, because hemp oil also slows down those cravings for addiction. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's in the working. We're working on that now. It's part of what I'm doing, and using the THC removed hemp oil, because the receptor sites, the endocannabinoid system, they all work the same way. So there's a number of studies that show that when you use this hemp oil, it satisfies those receptor sites and gets you off the opioid addiction. So hopefully that'll work and be effective, another modality of treating these people that are addicted. So anyway, we have that, but education is a big deal here. You're trying to educate this board, and your system is trying to educate these people to not utilize these addictive products.
Right.
So how are you doing that?
We try to have a holistic approach where, the direct treatment, where we're involving them in inpatient treatment and then step down to outpatient treatment. They also are required to attend 12-step meetings an NA, Narcotics Anonymous, or Alcoholics Anonymous, or a secular 12-step program.
So explain this a little more in detail what the 12-step program
The
is.
12-step program is developed originally from Alcoholics Anonymous, where they work the 12 steps beginning with surrendering to a higher power all the way up to achieving recovery and maintaining recovery. And then Narcotics Anonymous adopted that similar 12 steps. We also offer or allow our offenders to use a secular program, and the name escapes me at the moment, that may not be as religious based for those that don't want that. But we have learned that spirituality is an important part of recovery. The studies have shown that those that are able to sustain their recovery have some form of spirituality, whether it's the religious part or something that, or the higher power, or something that motivates them to maintain their recovery. It might be their profession or their family, their children, something that motivates them spiritually to maintain that, and that's an important part of it.
Absolutely. When you're on the bench, do you see all age groups coming into you, or is there a particular age group that you see the most?
Our median age is around 30s. That's the majority of our folks, but we have all, it happens to all walks of life. And of course, this is an adult court, so they're over 18, but I've had them 18 and 19 up to even a few years older than me in their 60s. So.
As a result of alcohol, or as a result of like prescribed medications, or, I mean, this involves everything from cocaine, meth,
Right.
to prescription drugs and alcohol.
Right.
So what's the majority that you see in front of you?
The majority are alcohol.
Alcohol.
People that struggle with alcohol, but right now, next to alcohol is the opioids and heroin, and the opioids would be, heroin of course is an opioid, and then the prescription pills and the fentanyl now coming into our...
Which is highly dangerous.
Yeah.
It's extremely life-threatening.
Yes.
And people are dying all the time from that.
Yes. And because the addiction is so powerful that it completely changes their thought process, and the addict's thought process and ability to reason. When they hear a warning on the news that there's a dangerous fentanyl that is killing people, some of the addicts want to try it and think, boy, that must really be good stuff, and I'll be able to handle it. The one that died wasn't able to handle it. It's really hard for us to understand that, but again, their thinking is completely, has been completely rewired or unwired.
Right.
So they're not thinking clearly by any means.
And so you see some repeat offenders.
Absolutely.
So what, does it take like 3 strikes you're out kind of deal, or do you still work with somebody that's come before you 3 times?
We try to, we don't have a set protocol, well, this is your 3rd strike, you have to go. We try to look at every case, case by case, because every case is a little different, and we sometimes give more chances maybe than we should, and but you have to look at every case differently, and sometimes it takes that 3rd or 4th time for the individual to say, I really get it now, I really need to turn this around.
So the police force and the first responders have a medication that's available now called naloxone. And so if somebody ODs, they can administer that and bring them back pretty quickly.
Right.
That's utilized a lot. I happen to have a relative who's a police officer that in one day administered naloxone 3 times to the same person.
Right.
And it's scary when you hear something like that, because here's somebody that has OD'd, come back, and then done it twice within the same day. Is there hope for that person?
Yes. And again, it's hard for us to fathom that because we're thinking clearly and these folks are not. They've been completely unwired. But our friends at the Drug and Alcohol Commission describe it as that when they administer that naloxone or also known as Narcan, that takes away that effect of the drug on the receptors, right? So that person is immediately sick from withdrawal. You've saved their life, but now they're sick. So they're so sick that they want to use again to get rid of that sickness. A lot of our addicts are are just trying to not be sick on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's something you don't think about.
And they're not getting the euphoric effect anymore that they may have had at the outset. They're just trying to not be ill. This terrible flu, it's been described as when you have the flu, this is like your worst flu times 10 that they have to deal with every day. So they're just trying to not be ill. So it does happen, and it is frustrating certainly for first responders that you're back at the same house, but there is hope for that person.
Are there areas of the county that have a more dense situation?
Yes, the city of Washington and some of the impoverished areas in the valley see more of a density, and but it is happening all over the county, and nobody's exempt. The affluent communities are having it too, but we see it more in the impoverished areas.
And what is how do you attribute that to those areas? I mean, it takes money to buy this stuff, first of all, but is it because life is so miserable for these people and they're looking for an escape?
I suppose, yeah.
And then on the outside, in the more well-to-do areas where this is going on, what's the reason for that?
Well, they have the access to money, so it's easier for them to acquire drugs. Plus, a lot of the folks we see started with a sports injury or another injury. Their doctor prescribed an opiate, and it got the better of them, and now they're chasing that they're addicted to a prescription opiate, and then they may eventually switch to an illicit drug like heroin or fentanyl.
Because it's easier now to obtain because you don't have to go to the physician, and the physicians now have woken up a little bit, and they're not. In fact, I just received a notification from the CDC saying that I shouldn't be prescribing a whole new protocol on prescribing pain medications. And it used to be, okay, you're in pain, well, here's, some opioid form, and you gave so many pills and so forth. Now they're saying that use the NSAIDs, the non-steroidals, and so forth before you ever prescribe those. And it, pain is a result of inflammation, basically. And if you can subdue that inflammation, then you get rid of the pain generally. And with an opioid, there's no inflammation reduction. It's just you trick the mind to not know the pain, to remember the pain or to feel the pain. So it's better always to remove that inflammation than to have suppression of your function as far as pain notification. But when somebody comes to you and they're in pain, your first response is, hey, let's get you out of pain. And that was an easy way to do it. I kind of blame the drug manufacturers myself. They put the burden on physicians. I will tell you that. That's the new thing. They put the burden on physicians as far as prescribing, but the drug companies push that stuff, and they push it on TV, and they push it to the physicians as well. And that's what has to change as far as I'm concerned. We have to stop this pushing of the drugs.
I agree.
But so tell us the process. All right, I got a DUI, my first one, and I'm now in front of you on the bench. What happens?
Well, for your first DUI, you would, assuming there were no extenuating circumstances, you didn't have an accident involving serious injuries or anything, you're offered a break, which we call the ARD program, or Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition. It's a diversionary program where instead of the mandatory jail sentence that you would face, up to 3 days in jail, you would go on probation, you do drug and alcohol evaluation, you complete a course of alcohol highway safety school. If you complete everything successfully and don't get in trouble again, your charges are dismissed and your record can be expunged. That's why we call it diversionary. You didn't actually get a conviction. Okay. And it's a break for the first offense. You don't get instead of a 1-year mandatory license suspension, your license is only suspended for up to 60 or 90 days, depending on your blood alcohol content.
And what's the legal limit on alcohol content?
The legal limit is 0.08, 0.08. If you're stopped and your blood alcohol content is 0.08 or greater, you're presumed to be incapable of safe driving.
All right, so that's alcohol. But how do we assess the fact that we're on some type of prescription med?
That's not as clear cut. We will, the police, if they have a legitimate reason for stopping you, first of all, whether you're weaving or you have an accident or maybe you just you commit some traffic violation. If there were cues, signs that you were under the influence of something, of alcohol or something else, the alcohol is a little easier. There'll be an odor and so forth. But police are trained in that. They'll see these other cues for intoxication of other substances, like the inability to function, inability to respond, that kind of thing. They'll do a blood test for those other substances. Now, you can be under the influence of a prescription drug and maybe still be capable of safe driving, but all the events leading up to that stop are evidence of your inability, your impairment.
John, I want to thank, we're at the end of the show, and I want to thank you for coming on. Judge John DiSalle, Washington County Common Pleas and the Drug and Alcohol Commission, Washington County. Remember, a healthy pet is a happy pet, and when you're healthy, you're happy too. You can also listen to me on AM 1250 The Answer every Saturday morning from 9 to 10. John, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks
we
for having
will
me.
see you next time on Healthy Pets, Healthy People, Healthy Owners.